Okay, so now let's look at the theorems under what? Polynomial functions, right? So the first theorem we are going to talk about is what? The remainder theorem. So we have remainder theorem. Okay, yes. And so I said anytime you divide a polynomial, right, your result becomes what? The remainder, right? Yes. And so anytime your remainder is equal to 0, it means the divisor is a factor of that particular polynomial. And anytime uh, you will be given two polynomials and they ask you to what? Divide the polynomial. The answer that you are going to get becomes what? Your remainder. And so for remainder theorem, it's more of your function f of x equal to 2x squared plus 2x minus 4. And you have been asked to calculate for f of 2. So f of 2 becomes what? It means, you see here, there is, from the question here is what? X. And now they are saying f of 2. So it means you have to replace the x by what? 2. Okay. So we say f of 2 is equal to 2 into bracket 2 exponent 2 plus 2 minus 4. Okay. And so our f of 2 here is equal to, here will give you 4. So your 2 is multiplying 4 plus 2 multiplying 2 minus 4. Okay. Now we can say 2 times 4 is what? Our f of 2. 2 times 4 is 8 plus 2 times 2 is what? 4 minus 4. Okay. So we have f of 2 as what? 8. Okay. So this is what? The remainder. What they are asking us to calculate for our final result becomes of the remainder. And so always have it in mind. They will provide you the function. And with this second part, sometimes they are not going to give it to you directly, as in f is equal to what? 2. But sometimes you can be given x minus 2. I hope you get it. X minus 2. This is a root, or we call this zero of a root, or zero of a function. Sorry, this is a zero of a function or a root of a function. Okay, so anytime they give you x minus 2, just equate this to what? 0, because we are going to find what? A remainder. And before you get the factor, here it is 2 is a factor. So before you get to the factor, you have to equate that particular function or that particular root to 0. So you equate it to 0 and you find what? X. So you can see that x is equal to what? 2. And so if x is equal to 2, you can say f of 2. Do you get it? So it's either they give you f of 2 or x minus 2 and they ask you to calculate for remainder. Do you get it? Alright, so now since we are okay with the format, let's take a question and we see how to solve a question under remainder theorem. Okay, so the first question here says find the remainder when x cubed minus x squared. So we are finding the remainder when x cubed minus x squared. Okay. Plus x minus 1 plus x minus 1 is divided by 2x is divided by 2x minus 1. Okay. So we have to find the remainder. Find the remainder. Yes. Find the remainder. And I said what you are going to divide by this. If it is a straight number, you can just substitute it into this function, and the result becomes what? The remainder they are asking you to find. Okay. And now because this is what? Another function or a zero of a function or a root of a function, what you would have to do is you have to simplify this first before you substitute it into what? This. Okay. So you already have this one. This is 2x minus 1. So I said anytime you are given what a function, you write it and you equate it with 0. So it becomes 2x equal to 1, right? You divide both sides by 2, and you say x is equal to 1 over 2. So it is this 1 over 2 that you are going to substitute into this function to get the remainder. Sometimes, if you don't see this, you see x minus 3. So if you see x minus 3, just equate it to 0 to get x equal to 3, and you substitute this 3 into the function. Okay, so now after this, but we saw our x to be what? Half. So our x is equal to half. Okay, so we are going to substitute this into this. So we say f of half is equal to half cube minus half squared plus half minus 1. Okay, so f of half here is equal to, now you see this has exponent what? 3. So under exponential indices, you see that this there is going to be 1 exponent 3, 2 exponent 3, right? So we have 1 over 2 exponent 3 is what? 8, right? And minus, here is also going to be 1 over 4, okay, plus half minus 1. Okay. Now we are going to find the common multiple, okay, the least common multiple, that is the LCM. So the LCM is 8 because 4 can go into 8, 2 can also go into 8. So the LCM here is, so let's say f of r is equal to, our LCM is 8. 8 goes into 8, 1 times 1 is 1. Okay, so we have 1 minus 4 goes into 8, how many times? 2. 2 times 1 is what? 2. Okay, so we bring minus 2. Okay, then plus 2 goes into 8, how many times? 4. And 4 times 1 is what? 4. Okay, and the last part is what? There is divided by 1 here, but because it is 1, we don't normally write. And so 1 goes into 8, how many times? 8. And so 8 times 1 is what? 8. So we say minus 8. Okay, so f of half here is equal to, let's simplify whatever we have. So 1 minus 2 is what? Minus 1 plus 4 is what? Positive 3 minus 8 is what? Negative 5. So negative 5 divided by 8, and this becomes what? Our final answer. So this is what? The remainder that they are asking for. So this is how to calculate for what? Remainder under what? Polynomial functions. Okay, so let's pick one complex question and solve. When we finish, we proceed to uh, the factor theorem. Okay, so the question says, when the polynomial ax cubed, so ax cubed, that is the polynomial, plus bx squared, okay, then minus 3x plus 2, minus 3x plus 2. Okay, so this is the polynomial. It's divided by, so when this polynomial is divided by x plus 2, so when this is divided by, when it's divided by x plus 2, right? Yes, the remainder is negative 20. The remainder here is negative what? 20. And it proceeds to say, and when divided by 2x plus 1. So this same polynomial, when it is divided by 2x plus 1, the remainder is The remainder is 2 whole number 1 over 2. 1 over 2. So we have to find A and what? B. We have to find A and B. Okay. So we are just going to apply whatever that we have learned to get or to establish simultaneous equation. And for the simultaneous equation, you can apply what Cramer's rule under matrices, or you can apply the graphic method or the substitution method or the elimination method. Any of the method you can apply it and you solve the simultaneous equation. Okay, so you have this polynomial and they are saying when it is divided by this, you get what? This remainder. What does it mean by when it is divided by this? You have this remainder. It means when you substitute the result of this into this, it must be equal to what? Negative 20. Right? So we have A x exponent 3 plus b x exponent 2. I don't need to rewrite it again. Let's do it straightforward. Let's take the divisor and work on that. So the first one, we have x plus 2. So we say you equate the divisor to 0. Then you find it and you say x is equal to what? Negative 2. Right? So now we know for our divisor x is equal to what? Negative 2. Now, when you substitute negative 2 into this function, it means your product or the end result must be equal to what? Negative 20, because that is the remainder. So we are going to do that. We have a into brackets, negative 2 exponent 3 plus b into brackets, negative 2 exponent 2 minus 3 negative 2 plus 2. Yes, and when you substitute this into this, your remainder must be what? Negative 20. Negative 20. Okay, so let's simplify it. A multiplying what? Negative 2 exponent 3 will give you negative what? 8. Okay, negative 8. Plus B, negative 2 exponent 2 will give you positive 4. Okay, minus um, let me rewrite it again so that I simplify it in the next negative 20. Okay, so now this one will give you negative 8a plus 4b plus 6 plus 2. And so plus 6 plus 2 will give you plus 8 equal to negative 20. And so now let's establish our simultaneous equation, which is negative 8a plus 4b equal to negative 20. When this crosses the equation, it becomes negative 8. So now we have negative 28. And we say this is equation 1. Okay. So now let's establish equation 2. So we are done with the first part. And the second part is when this polynomial is divided by 2x plus 1, the remainder is now 2 whole number 1 over 2. So it means we are going to equate this to 0 and substitute it and equate that function to what? 2 whole number 1 over 2. Okay. We don't have space there. So, okay. Now, let's reclaim this small part. Okay. So, this is 2x plus 1 equal to 0. So, you see that you have 2x equal to negative 1. Now, we divide both sides by 2 by 2. So, x is equal to negative 1 over 2. Right? So, we are going to substitute this into this function and equate the result to this. So we have a into brackets negative 1 over 2 q plus b into brackets negative 1 over 2 squared minus 3 into brackets negative 1 over 2 plus 2. Then you equate it to what? 2 whole number 1 over 2. Okay, yes. And so let's simplify it. This is going to give us negative what? 1 over 8, right? So we have a multiplying negative 1 over 8 plus b multiplying 1 over, should I say 1 over 4, right? So 1 over 4. We have minus 3 times. This one will give you plus 3 on 2 because minus minus. So plus 3 on 2 plus 2 equal to, this is 4 plus 1 is 5. So you have 5 on 2. Okay. So let's simplify it. We have negative 1 on 8 a plus 1 over 4 b plus 3 over 2 plus 2. So 3 over 2 plus 2, let's simplify it. What do we have? This times this is 4 plus this is 7. So 7 on 2. 7 on 2. So we have 7 on 2 equal to 5 on 2. Okay. So if you simplify this, what do you have? We are going to multiply everything here by 8 and do the cancellation to establish our second equation. So when you do or you perform that calculation, you are going to get minus a plus 2b minus a plus 2b equal to negative 7, equal to negative 7, right? Yeah, equal to negative 7. Yes, that is what you are going to get. So this one becomes equation what? 2. And so now since we have equation 1 and equation 2, it means we can solve it what simultaneously, right? And how do you solve simultaneous equation? You can apply what Cramer's rule by grouping them into what a matrix what and x and y, your products, you solve it, or you can use the elimination method to solve the simultaneous equation. So the most important part is how to go by the question when you find a question like this. This is how we solve it. So for simultaneous equation, I'll leave it to you for you to try. Okay. Okay, so now let's see whether I can do the calculations here. So for equation 1, we have this, and equation 2. So sorry, equation 2, we are supposed to get negative 8 here, not negative 7. Okay, negative 8. So we are now going to solve it with simultaneously. So this is equation 1, negative 8a plus 4b equal to negative 28. Okay, then we have negative a plus 2b equal to negative 8. Okay, so now here is what? 2, here is 4. So we can multiply this equation 2 by 2 so that here will become what? 4, and we eliminate this. Or we can multiply it by 8 so that here and here will be 8 so that we eliminate it. So now let's multiply equation 2 by 4. Okay, so multiply equation 2 by 4. Okay. Sorry, by 2. So now we have negative 2a plus 4. 2 is multiplying this and multiplying this, so plus 4b equals to negative 16. Okay, so now this becomes equation what? 3. You can name it equation 3 or you can leave it. And so when you subtract this from this, or when you subtract this from this, okay, yes. So equation 1 minus equation 3. Minus 8a minus 2a will give you what? Minus 8a minus 2a. I hope you get that. So that will give you minus 6a. Right. So minus 8a minus 2a is minus 8a plus 2a. And that is minus 6a. Okay. Then 4b minus 4b is there. So we are not going to write anything there. The negative 28 minus 16. So you have negative 28 minus 16. They will tend to plus. So negative 28 plus 16 will give you what? 12. That is negative 12. So we divide both sides by negative 6. Negative 6. So your A here is equal to what? 2. Okay. Now you substitute 2 in here to get what? B. And when you substitute 2, it is going to be um, negative 2 plus 2b equal to 8. So you have 2b equal to negative 8 plus 2. So 2b equal to negative 6. Okay, so 2b equals to negative 6. When you simplify it, you are going to get what? B equals negative 3. B equals negative 3, right? Yes, that is what. So finally, for where is the question? Yes, there is the question. So they said we have to find for what? A and B. And so we say our A is equal to 2 and our B is equal to negative 3. So that is it. So we are done with the remainder theory. Now let's move on to the factor theory. Okay, so now we are going to look at the factor what? Theory. Okay, so factor theory. Okay, so for the factor theory, we are going to look at the divisor that what number can be divided by the function. Do you get it? Yes, what number can be divided by the function? And so that is what we are going to do over here. And so the first question says determine whether or not x plus 2 is a factor of a certain function. So x plus 2 and the function is x cubed plus 2x. So x cubed plus 2x minus x minus 2. And this is the, it says what? There's the function. So you are going to test for this function, whether this function is a factor of this. Okay. And before you test for a function, before you test for any factor of a function, what you are supposed to do first is just note that if you substitute this into this, you are supposed to get what? 0. That is why initially I said anytime you substitute a function, let's say a value of x into a function and the answer is 0, it means that particular number is a factor of the function. Okay, yes. And so if you don't get 0 or your remainder is not 0, it means it is not a factor. For example, 8 and 3. Okay, so you see if you divide 8 by 3, you are going to get 2 and a remainder, right? Yes, and because your remainder is not 0, it means 3 is not a factor of 8. Do you get it? And so if you say 8 and 2, if you divide 8 by 2, you are going to get what? 4, right? And the remainder is 0. Because the remainder is 0, it means 2 is a factor of 8. Do you get it? That is it. And so here we are going to use a. So we first equate this number or this function to 0, x plus 2 to 0. And we say x is equal to negative 2. So we are going to substitute this negative 2 into this function. If it is equal to 0, it means this is a factor of this polynomial. If it is not equal to 0, it means this is not a factor. Okay, so let's see. We have x cubed, so negative 2 cubed plus 2 negative 2 minus negative 2 negative 2. So now we are done substituting what x equals negative 2 into the function. Okay, so let's solve it. Negative 2 is when 3 will give you negative 8 plus positive 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. Negative negative will give you what? Positive. So you have plus 2 minus 2. Okay. So negative 8 minus 4 is negative 12. Plus 2 is what? Negative 10. Minus 2 is what? Negative 12. So you have negative 12. Okay. So it means this function or this polynomial, when it is divided by this, the remainder is what? Negative 12. So it means you are having a remainder. Since your remainder is not equal to 0, it means this is not a factor. It's not a factor of this polynomial. Okay. Yeah, so that is all about the factor theory. So we are just going to solve one question under the factor theory and we are done with it. Okay. So always equate the function which is dividing the polynomial towards 0 and substitute it into the function. If it is equal to 0, it means that function is what? A factor of the polynomial. And if it is not equal to 0, it means that function is not a factor of the polynomial. Okay, so one question, let's say you have x minus 1. X minus 1. Okay, this is the function. Yes, the question is saying determine whether or not x minus 1 is a factor of the polynomial x cubed. The polynomial is what? X cubed plus 2x minus x minus 2. So I think that is like the first one. So this is very simple. Equate this to 0, you have x minus 1 equal to 0, right? So x equal to 1. Now we are going to substitute 1 here. Okay, so you have 1 cube plus 2, 1 minus 1 minus 2. So you have 1 plus 2 minus 1 minus 2. So 1 plus 2 is what? 3. 3 minus 1 is what? 2. And 2 minus 2 is what? 0. So it means x minus 1 is a factor. It's a factor of the polynomial x cubed plus 2x minus x minus 2. Yes, so that is the answer. And that is all about what? The factor theorem. Okay, the factor theorem. Okay, yes. And so that is, we are done with the theory, and now we are just left with one thing to look at. That is a zero of a polynomial. They can ask you to calculate for the zero of a polynomial. And so let's also look at that. Okay, so when we talk about the zeros of polynomial function, here we are talking about the roots. Do you get it? Or in other words, when you are dealing with algebraic fraction, we term it as what? Factorization. Do you get it? And so the zeros, the roots, or whatever, we are just trying to tell you to factorize the polynomial. Okay, just break the polynomial what? Down. I hope you get it. Yes. And so most of the time they'll give you a polynomial and a function. They'll give you a polynomial and ask you to what? Find the roots. It means just factorize the polynomial, okay, or find the zeros of it, okay. So what you have to do is, now you are going to test all the numbers from 1, 2, 3, 4. So you are going to test for, or you are going to look for a factor. You know that a factor is a number that is divisible by a certain number without a remainder, or when your remainder is equal to 0. So it means if we have a function f of x is equal to 2x squared plus 3x minus x minus 2. This is our function. We are not giving any factor, nothing. And they are asking us to what? Find the zero of what? Sorry, this is key. This is key. The zeros or the root of this, or to factorize this. Do you get it? So what we would have to do is, it's very simple. It's very simple. We are going to look for the factor. After looking for the factor, we are going to apply the division, and we are done. Okay, and now how do you look for the factor? You are going to start from 1, 2, 3. Sometimes you start from -1. Okay, yes. So 1, 2, 3, -1. You are going to test for them. So any number that when you substitute here, you get 0. It means that is a factor, right? Then you pause there, you divide it by this, and you are done. Okay, so now let's look at it. Let's take a question. This one, maybe we may suffer because of I took it from my head. Okay, so find the zeros of the function x cubed. Right, so you have x cubed. F of x is equal to x cubed minus 2x squared, right, minus 9x plus 18. Okay, so they said we are to what? Find for the zeros or the roots. So when we talk about the roots, it's just like you have x minus 1, 2x plus 3. This is a root, this is a root, this is 0, this is a root. So it's more like factorization. You get that? You get that? So we are going to test for the numbers, right? So we are starting with what? 1. So we say f of 1 is equal to 1 cube minus 2. We are testing for the numbers. The one that will give us 0, we will pick that number. Okay. So 1 squared minus 9, 1 plus 18. So we have 1 here. This one will give us 1. So minus 2. We have minus 9. We have plus 18. Right? So this is 1. So negative 1, negative 10 plus 18 is what? 18. Right? So this is the 1 is not giving us what? 0. So we are going to ignore 1 and move on. We want what? The next one, that is 2. Let's move on to 2. 1, 2. So we are testing that the next one is 2. So f of 2 is equal to 2 cubed minus 2, 2 squared minus 9, 2 plus 18. Okay, so this one will give us 8. This one is 4 minus 8. This one is minus 18 plus 18. So 8 minus 8 is 0. Minus 18 plus 18 is also what? 0. So since we are getting our remainder to be 0, it means this 2, right, is a factor of the polynomial, right? Yes. And so since it is a factor of the polynomial, how do you write its factor? You know, when we were dealing with factor theory, most of the time they give us something like this. Okay, then we rather equate it to 0 before we do the substitution. But yeah, you have gotten what? 2. So you are going to write it in a form of factor in polynomials. So the 2 is positive, the 2 is positive. Okay, so when you write it in polynomial or in function form, it's more, look at this, x is equal to 2. Okay, now we want polynomial or a function. You get it? This is not a function, this is equation. So we want it in the form of a function. So it means this 2 has to cross the equal sign, and you're going to get x minus what? 2. You get it? And so this x minus 2 is what? A factor of what? This polynomial. Right, so we are going to divide this x minus 2 by this polynomial. The answer that we are going to get becomes what? Our, together with this becomes our what? 0 or the root. So this is one root. So we are going to do our division. x3 minus 2x squared minus 9x plus 18. So you have x minus 2. You have x minus 2. So x goes here what? Just reduce it by 2, that is by 1. So x squared, right? So x squared times x will give you x cubed, right? And x squared minus 2 will give you what? Negative 2x squared. And when you subtract, here will give you 0. Negative 2x squared minus, so this one will give you plus. So negative plus, here will give you what? 0, right? So everything here times, we are now going to bend this. So negative 9x plus 18. Okay, I hope you understand. So x goes here what? Negative 9. And negative 9 times x is what? Negative 9x. And negative 9 times negative 2 is positive 18. Right? So negative, this negative will give you plus. So negative 9x plus 9x will give you what? 0. So this one is gone. 18. So 18 minus 18 is also what? 0. Okay. It's also 0. So now since we have 0 as our remainder, it means we are done. Right? And our root becomes x minus 2. Our root becomes x minus 2 x squared minus 9. Okay, you can also factorize x squared minus 9 to get the common. This one is just like binomial distribution or function. Okay, so x minus or uh, multiplication of two squares. So you have x minus 2. When you break this one down, you have what? X minus 3, x plus 3. Okay. Yes. So these are the roots of the function, right? So if you expand this, you are going to get this as simple as that. If you multiply this, or if you multiply through, if you multiply this by this, you are going to get this as simple as that. Okay. Yes. And that is what we mean by the zeros of a polynomial. So this brings us to the end of what polynomial functions. Okay. So we are going to meet the next time for another topic. Kindly subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you don't miss any video once it is posted. You like the video, please. You also comment if you have any question that you don't understand. You put it at the comment section and our team will attend to you. Please share to your friends and let them also benefit from the topic. Okay. Thank you. Bye bye.